Hi, I'm Nick Blagona, and this is Bridge the Atlantic.
Hey, how's everyone doing? For Bridge the Atlantic, I'm singer-songwriter Marcio Novelli from Canada.
And I'm music web designer Ross Barber-Smith from Scotland.
And you're watching Encore, a show featuring advice for musicians from the industry's finest. If you're new here, subscribe.
Today we're joined by Juno-nominated producer and engineer Nick Blagona from Canada. Nick's credits include Cat Stevens, The Police, Deep Purple, Alexisonfire, Foo Fighters, Green Day, and our very own Marcio Novelli.
Nick, we want to see if you can offer us some specific advice on how to make the most out of a session once you're actually in the studio with a producer or engineer. Are there any tips you can offer on how artists can communicate most effectively with producers and engineers?
Well, before you walk into the studio, you should have already met the producer. And sometimes it's good to talk to the engineer to get the feel of the land. And for you to tell them exactly what you're looking for, sometimes specifically like a sound, but never say, can you make me sound like Ed Sheeran or some other bloke, just to say you want to make it sound as personal as possible and so forth, and how you want to do it. For instance, if you're doing an acoustic guitar and vocal, which is in most cases the situation, then what you need to do is learn how to play with a click track. And the reason why is because the first thing to do is you do your acoustic guitar first in the studio with a click, and then you add your vocal. And I will always suggest that you do the vocals at least 3 or 4 times, and then sit down with the producer and choose the best line and make a composite lead vocal track. And if you're happy with that, then you accomplished what you set out to do. If not, then you go back in and do it until you're happy. The problem is sometimes you don't know when to stop. And I call that a completion complex. Because you always think you can do better, and you always think you can do better. And you can drive people crazy with that. Because what happens is that the producers say, I don't hear anything. I think you're doing great. So why do you want to do it? And so then there is a little tension involved. And as soon as you have any tension in the studio, then the whole session goes downhill, depending what kind of slope you've got. So if you are a control freak and you think you can always do it better, my suggestion is that you do it at home and go crazy. And I've seen a lot of people go crazy. And I've been in situations where I did one record where this fellow has done the same album for 10 years. And there are some people who are quite famous who do that too. The problem with Pro Tools and technology today is that it allows you to go crazy. Whereas in analog, you had 24 tracks, and you didn't have that at home. So you had to go to the studio. And so you had time constraint and track constraint. And you had to perform very quickly. So with today's digital domain, it can go nuts. And sometimes, I have to deal with the therapy situation where I have to, it's like I'm a psychiatrist trying to calm down this artist because they go totally nuts. Sometimes when I do a mix, I'll give you an example. When I do a mix and I send it to the client, they hear things, they keep hearing. And I ask, well, how many times have you listened to it today? They say maybe 250 times. So they listen to it in the car, they listen to it to friends, they keep listening. And what they're listening for is any mistakes, as opposed to just enjoying the experience of the feel of the mix and what I did to it. And there's a reason why I mix it this way. And sometimes the client doesn't like it. That's fine. Then they go somewhere else and they remix it. Sometimes I find out that the client has spent like a fortune on 30 different mixers, and it gets stupid.
Well, let me jump in for a minute. You mixed my album. You mixed it fantastically. Mm-hmm. And I did come in with a whole bunch of things that I wanted changed, but God bless your soul. I'm not a religious person, but you were very patient with me, and you were
tweaks,
very tweaks. Oh, there were tweaks, and it was just they were more so personal preference tweaks. They weren't anything that you did wrong.
Tweaks are fine. Obviously. Yeah. Normally, what I do in that situation where I'm with the client is that I will mix the landscape enough that everything sounds fine, everything's in its place, and then I'll leave it up to the artist or the producer or other people to point out, well, maybe this needs to be up and that needs to be up and so forth. And that's what I do basically, because I'm not the producer. And sometimes the engineer takes the role of the producer, and I think that's wrong. The engineer is a mixing engineer, and so I learned from being brought up in the British sense, is that you create a landscape first, a really good landscape, and the rest is other people's choices. You know, like the usual thing was the record company always wanted the vocal up, so you do a vocal up version. Or, you know, with Deep Purple, Richie always wanted the guitar solo up and so forth. And I tried to anticipate all these because people wanted to get involved. You know, so that's what my philosophy is.
Isn't there a story where when you mixed Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic by the Police, Sting kept telling you to turn down the vocals, turn down the vocals?
Yeah. Even to this day, when I hear this song on radio, I think...
Me too, every time. Why are the vocals so low?
The vocals so low. And... but, you know, that's the way he felt it was. And... you know, in the days before computers and technology, we had the whole band mix. So I would have the bass player do the drums, I would do the vocal, the guitar player would do the piano. Nobody would do their own instrument because that way everybody would be just loud.
It would just floor it. It would just hit the ceiling every time.
and it would be performance. So you tried to do the whole song in one go, and sometimes somebody fucked up, so we have to go back and then start from there, and then the rest would be edits with the razor blade. And that's how we used to do it. If I was alone mixing, that I would mix on different machines, one machine just for the verses, one machine for the choruses, and one machine for the solos, and then take a razor blade and put it all together. But today with the technology, it's all different. But I try not to have the band in with me when I'm mixing that first landscape, because, you know, the problem is the singer walks in, I'm working on the bass, and the singer walks in and says the vocal. I don't hear the vocal.
Yeah.
Then I have to stop and explain to the guy that I'm working on the fucking bass, man.
And it gets you out of your zone too, you know?
Yeah, it gets me out of the zone.
Get the landscape going, then bring them in. Yeah, exactly. I think I was around when you were mixing, but I knew to just let you do your thing, you know, and then,
I put tape over your mouth and it worked quite well.
that wasn't even in the studio.
No. But anyway, that's basically the answer to your question. Was a long answer, but there are more complications involved in just walking into the studio. Sometimes when you walk into the studio, you don't give a shit, and everything works out great, you know. But it's the roll of the dice, and sometimes you get the bear, and sometimes the bear shits on you. So, you know, so.
I think it's important to take control of your career, but to also respect the other people that, if you chose to bring them in to work with you, I mean, bring them in for a reason and respect what they're doing.
I think being a freak over control is fine. Yeah. As long as you have respect for the song. If your ego gets in the way, then the song starts to suffer. A song is like a child, you know? It has an identity of its own. It has a life of its own. And sometimes when you try to force something upon the song that you think it should have, then you're doing the wrong thing altogether.
We hope you enjoyed this Encore episode. For more from British Atlantic, you can find us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. And if you want to pick up one of our shirts, visit our website and use the coupon code BTAROCKS to receive 20% off your order.
This episode was brought to you by Social Surge, your source for social media marketing and online music promotion. Check them out because they do what, Ross?
They keep their show alive.
That's right.
And if you would like to sponsor the show and become an official Bridger, join us on Patreon from as little as $1 per month. Not only will you be able to showcase your band or brand to our amazing audience, but your support will allow us to keep bringing you weekly videos here at Bridge the Atlantic.
That's right. We'll see you guys again soon.
Bye.